My name is Santiago Forbes.
Hey, it's Kaina. Hello, I'm Ksenia Forbes.
Hi, my name is Yesenia Morales, but now it's Forbes because
Hello. This is Kaina from Express Yourself, and I'm here to interview somebody new today. Woo! Yay! All right. So, if you could please introduce yourself for our audience.
My name is Ashley, but I go by Alex.
All right. And if you are willing to disclose this, how old are you?
I'm 32 years young.
Age is just a number. You good.
Age ain't nothing but a number.
Age ain't nothing but a number. Okay. So, this is a podcast about children or kids of people who have, incarcerated parents. Which is your incarcerated parent?
My father.
All right. And so, how long has he been incarcerated?
Well, he went in 1989, and he just got out last month, I want to say.
Okay. And with that going on, what was your experience like, just dealing with that?
As a child?
As a child, as an adult, just, growing up without him and stuff like that.
Well, when I was younger, I don't really remember too much, but I do know my mom remarried.
Okay.
When I was maybe like 6. So my stepdad did raise us, but still, like, before that time, like, it was a little weird, like, going to school and, like, their dads would be there, and they'd be like, oh, where's your dad at? And I'm like, oh, he's in jail. Which I knew he was in jail, but I didn't know why. But I did know he was in jail.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I had a couple of other friends who had their dads were in jail too.
Okay.
But it was always like a awkward, like, oh, where's your dad at? And I'm like, almost like maybe like one of the only kids that didn't have a dad there. Until my mom got remarried.
Oh, okay.
But still, even then, it's like, oh, that's not you can tell that that's not my real dad. So it's still kind of like no, that's not my real dad. But it was just it wasn't too bad, but it's still like it was still a little awkward feeling.
See, for everybody else, it was a little bit of an easier experience. I was kind of weird because my dad wasn't in my life, and then my stepdad was the one who was incarcerated.
Okay, yeah, see, yeah.
So I didn't really get either.
See, I got one, but still, it was like, and I would go visit him all the time still, but everybody knew, like, and then as I got older, like, everybody really knew, like, oh, her dad's in jail. I didn't know why he was in jail until, like, I think I was, like, 9 or 10.
Okay.
Because nobody would tell me why he went to prison.
Oh.
So, as a kid, I'm like, oh, he's in jail. Everybody's like, what for? I was like, I don't know, but...
So, not to disclose too much, was it, like, a violent crime? Was it, like, money, like a federal type thing?
No, it was a violent crime.
Oh, okay.
It was a violent crime.
Okay.
I would say.
So, besides, not knowing how to answer, certain questions about, like, where your father is and what he was in for, how did, him being in prison, affect you?
Honestly, I don't really... I want to say it did affect me, but it didn't, because... I was lucky enough to have, like, my stepdad, like come into my life between, like, my most, like, what's the word I'm looking for, like,
impressionable,
your most precious moments. Like, I want to say from, like, 6 to 12, which is a pretty decent gap. So I don't really think it affected me that bad, because I did have, like, my stepdad there, but it still affected me as far as, like, prison visits. Because kids, I was a kid, I hated going in prison to visit my dad.
Oh my God, I hate that.
I hated it.
Hate that so much.
And it's like, I don't want to, and kids don't want to sit, because I was thinking too, because I met my dude in prison too.
Oh, for real?
I met him in prison. So when I would go visit him in prison, I was looking at all these kids, and they're just so bored out of their minds, and I'm like, dude, I remember that shit. Like, I remember it so vividly. They do not want to be here.
No, it's so boring. But that's why, they try to, like, with all the games and, like, the TV to try and, like...
See, where I was at visiting... Well, when I was a kid, It depends, because my dad got sent to like a bunch of different places. They had some prisons that had like coloring books and shit like that, and then some didn't have nothing, so you really had to sit there. And my grandma was one of those, we got to get there before count type of people, because she wanted to stay there all day long. And I'm like, as a child, like, this is boring.
Yeah, no, hella boring.
And I feel bad, like, I don't want to go see my dad. I really didn't want to go see him. Not because I didn't want to see him, but kids don't want to sit through that shit.
Yeah, no, like, they get restless. Like, my brother is a very energetic person. Like, of course, as a kid, it was worse. Yeah. So, like, you know, him going to go visit and all that, it was really, like, hard for him. Plus, he's very an emotional person. Yeah. So, like, you know, being excited and all that, and then having to leave, he cried almost every time. Yeah. But, like, just having to sit there and stuff like that, it's really hard. And, you know, another thing is that, you know, our parents, they were very much in love. Like, they still are. But, like, so, like, there would be moments where they're just, like, in each other's own, like, zone. And so me, as the oldest, I had to, like, distract the younger two to, like, so they won't, like, go run amok.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think another thing, too, like, with the visits is, like, there's a lot of shit you have to do just even to get in there. Even as a kid, like, you gotta pat these little kids down. Like, they don't know what's going on. It's weird. There'll be times where they might not let you in. Like, well, not me, but, like, when I was little, like, oh, my grandma wasn't wearing something right. Or my aunt wasn't wearing something right. So, it was just this big old ordeal. And so, as a kid, you're like, well, am I still gonna get to see my dad or what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no, that happened to us a couple times. And one time, it was at a spot where, like, you know, the little, like, lost and found type thing, or like it wasn't open all the time. So, and of course the day that we went, it wasn't open. So my mom was trying to figure out how we were gonna get in, because I forgot if it was both of us or just one of us that you know was having an outfit issue. Plus, like, we had my sister there, and she was like a baby at the time, so like we had to carry her and all that. It was just a lot going on.
Yeah, I had to change my outfit, I think, like, one time, because I literally, like, I've been going to visit my dad since I was, like, 1. That's all I know. Like, I know prison's like the back of my hand. I did have to change one time. Like, I don't remember what I was wearing, but I think I was, like, 12 at the time.
Yeah, no, that's not something you forget. Like, we got back into contact with my stepdad, because for a minute we weren't, because, you know, they got a divorce and, you know, all that other type of drama. But, like, we started going to visit him again last year before all this happened, and like, I was just like, oh yeah, you can't wear this color, you can't wear that, you can't wear this type of stuff, this, that, and the third. And my brother and sister were just like staring at me like, what? I was like, that's not something you forget.
Oh yeah, I know all the rules.
Like, you know all the rules, you remember the type of food is there, and they're like, well, okay, we got to take money because, you know, dad likes the cheeseburger, the bacon cheeseburger.
Almost $4 a piece.
Oh, he likes to. They're like, how do you remember that? I was like, he gets that every single time. Freaking bacon cheeseburger.
My dad would get the pizzas.
Oh yeah.
And like, my grandma was super cute. Like, my mom never took me to visit. It was just my grandma. Oh. But she would only bring enough money, like, just for my dad, because we never ate there. We would always eat before we would get there, and then we would eat afterwards. So, like, all the money she would bring was just for my dad. We would get, like, sodas and shit, but we wouldn't eat. My dad always would order, like, the most expensive shit, you know, like the cheeseburgers and the pizzas. They're like $4, $4.25.
Yeah, no, that stuff went up.
That's a lot.
Like,
my poor grandma, she's all sitting here, like, trying to count out her quarters. That's why she was like, we never ate there. We would always eat, like, after. But I remember, like, when I was younger, those pizzas that he used to eat, I always thought they looked so good. I always thought they looked so good when I was little. And, like, I kept thinking, like, I'm going to ask my grandma, like, if I can get one next time. So one day, like, finally, like, the night before, I go, Grandma, can you bring enough quarters so I can get a pizza too? And she was like, well, we're going to eat before. I go, no, but I just want to eat a pizza with my dad. Like, I want to eat it. So she brought enough. Because if my grandma wouldn't bring, like, a lot of quarters. She would only bring what she needed. So you would have to tell her, like, the day before, like, can you bring $4 extra? So, like, anyways, I got one of those. I finally got one of those pizzas, like, in the little prison visiting room. And to this day, I thought it was so good. It's trash, but I thought it was so good. Like, to this day, like, I still put my frozen pizzas in the microwave because it heats up the same way as those other pizzas did. And if I remember correctly, the ones that he used to eat were the mini Tony's deep dish pizzas.
Yeah.
Which they still sell at the dollar store.
Uh-huh.
And I'll still buy it. They literally taste exactly the same as I remember. They look the same, but you got to put it in the microwave. Because I'm just, the vibe is like, but ever since I was little, I was eyeballing that pizza. I was like, I want to get one day.
Yeah.
My grandma was like, no, it's too expensive. That's for your dad. And I was like, well, bring enough for me so I can get one.
Yeah, no, like, after, like, even as a kid, I was just like, this is kind of crap food. But I was like, imagine what they eat on a regular day basis. They just eat stuff that's, like, you know, nutritious enough to keep them going, pretty much.
What they eat in the visiting room is like heaven to them.
Exactly.
What they eat in there, I would see pictures and I'm like, oh, no wonder you guys get goofy happy when you come in here.
Or like when like they're like, oh, are you gonna send me a package?
Yes.
Or you go put money on my book so I could go to the what's the damn term for it? The commissary.
That's crazy. But yeah, I remember that shit. Another thing too that I don't like because of that is popcorn. I hate popcorn, and I hate the smell of popcorn, and it's because of all those years visiting, like, you know, prisons all smell the same. They all have that same, like, I don't know what the smell is, but
yeah,
when you go in a visiting room, I don't care what prison you go to, they all have the same smell. Mm-hmm. But where my dad used to be, they used to sell popcorn. Like, you would have to pop it yourself, like the little baggies. And people would hella be popping popcorn in there, and I hated the smell of it. And it mixed with the prison smell. I always remember that smell. So every time I smell popcorn, I hate popcorn.
The sad part is that because of all those visits, I learned that I'm excellent at popping popcorn in the microwave.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still my designated job to this day. Like, my mom always burns the popcorn. So, and I love popcorn. So even when we went to go visit him, I was making popcorn.
I hate popcorn because of that. Like, I never really liked it anyway. But like every time I would go in there, like, because I was there like a lot when I was younger. I think I went to visit maybe like once a month. Yeah. Twice a month maybe.
Yeah.
That's a lot for years. But every time I went in there, and I'm like, dude, I hope it doesn't smell like the popcorn in here, and it sure is. It would just smell like this buttered, heated up popcorn, along with this prison smell, the non-ventilation, and I'm just like, I can't take it. I can't eat popcorn because every time I smell it, that's what I see and smell, and I just hate popcorn because of it.
I just love popcorn, so like, I love popcorn, so I'm like, oh, whatever.
I hate it. Okay. Destroyed me. My love for popcorn.
Your love for popcorn. So why would you think something like this podcast is, you know, important?
Well, because everything that you see on TV, Netflix, things like that, it's usually more about the people that are locked up, or it's about prison wives, or it's about
the family as a whole.
Honestly, I don't want to say the family as a whole because I don't even think I've seen something like that. But you don't see anything like with kids, like their point of view.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you always see interviews with people that are already behind bars, or like, I've been here for 40 years, here's my story, or I've been in here I got life, here's my story, or I'm on death row, here's my story. Okay, and then you see like prison wives stories about how it's like to be married to an inmate, but you don't see like kids. You know? No. I've never seen one, and I don't even think I've seen a family one. I think it's just like all pretty much surrounded about the inmates. Maybe for entertainment purposes, that's why they do it. But
I don't know, because, you know, sometimes it's good for the inmates to tell their story, and I think they do that to kind of like discourage people from like doing what the inmates did to get in there in the first place, because they're like, okay, like, this dude did all of this and look where he's at now.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they do that, the inmate type thing. And then, you know, the wife thing, I think it's just kind of like, you know, again, to discourage people.
I know. I mean, I see like, the thing that I find so funny, I forgot what TV show it was, but it was one about like conjugal visits.
Oh.
Like,
they have a TV show about that?
I forgot. They do. Well, it's not a TV show based on conjugal visits. I believe it's. Do you remember the show Lock Up?
No.
There's a show called Lock Up, and it's pretty much it's a reality show, but it's pretty much it's like it'll be like Lock Up Orange County or Lock Up LA County, and it just takes you inside like LA County jails about whatever they're doing. But there was one, but every episode's a different story, and there was one with a couple that was going on their little conjugal visit.
Oh, okay.
And it was just like, first of all, I mean, like, I'm like, nobody cares about this conjugal visit. Let's talk about something else important. But it was just basically following her through her little conjugal visit and like all the stuff that she had to do to even get through, and like all kinds of stuff. Like, for what? I think it's for entertainment purposes. I don't think they really care, like, about the children.
Yeah, no, and it's like, you know, like I said before, it's like when they talk about, you know, absent parents, they just leave it as like an absent parent, and they don't like delve into why is that parent absent. Right. Because, you know, there's different reasons why, and, you know, sometimes those reasons are a little important, you know, besides, you know, them you just like deciding not to be there, and or unfortunately them being, you know, dead or deceased, however you want to say it.
Yeah, I feel like they don't want to touch on the subject of like why their parents aren't there.
What would you say was like the worst like experience, situation, you know, the worst thing out of, you know, your father being incarcerated?
His charge.
His charge?
His charge.
Ooh, well, I don't want to like give too many details, like for you to give too many details, you know, because not everybody needs to know, but like why was that the worst?
Well, without getting into detail what the charge was, it was a sexual offense charge.
Okay.
Which, when people do find out that, they don't really look at you the same. Like, I have no control over that. That has nothing to do with me. But at the same time, like, that's what I was saying. Like, when I found out what he did when I was, like, 9.
Oh, okay.
And the only reason I found out is because my little cousin actually told me. And she heard her grandma talking about it. Oh. So the next time she's seen me, she goes, "Hey, I found out why your dad was in prison." And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" So she told me. But then I didn't believe her, so I asked my mom. And then my mom finally was like, "Yeah, that's true." My mom never hid anything. She never really came out and told me.
Yeah.
She was kind of like one of those people that would wait till I asked.
Okay.
And then she wouldn't lie. My grandparents never told me nothing. That's their son, like on my because my mom's parents are not here no more.
Okay.
So this is all on my dad's side, but they never told me nothing. But I'm saying, like, when you get older and people start asking questions and you tell them that, you know how, especially nowadays, it's like, oh.
Yeah, especially when it comes to that. Like, unfortunately, one of my uncles was accused of that. He didn't do it. It was consensual, but I forgot why. They explained to me why, you know, she, you know, turned around and said it was the opposite. But now he's, you know, registered for the rest of his life, and you know, like whether it actually happened or not, you know, those people, you know, most of them, you know, they kind of like don't want to, they're not treated that well behind bars and on the street, so they kind of like are like kind of like recluse once they like do get out after they do their time. But yet people still bother them. Like, it was like, yes, you are like legally allowed to know where I'm at, like where I live, but that doesn't legally mean you can come bother me.
Right. I mean, I feel like see, when my dad just got out, and like he's one of those, my dad's one of those people, like, and now that he's out and we talk on the phone all the time, he's really like, he's like, you know, a lot of people that get out with discharge, they come out like in hiding almost, and my dad's like, I know what I did, but I'm not gonna come out here and like hide, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna live my life or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's like, I did my time, you know, I learned my lesson, like, I don't need you guys to dwell on it. I'm trying to, you know, make myself better and, you know, not move on, but kind of like move on. He's like, I'm not gonna forget it, but, you know, I can't, you know, let that be my whole life.
Yeah, and then I think so too, well, with everything going on, but so the thing about his, not that I'm excusing it, because I'm not excusing it at all, but anyway, I think he got that charge when he was like 18, 19. It was his first offense ever. And then my grandfather was like, because when this is in Virginia, it's such a small little town, so when it happened, it was a big deal.
Oh.
Everybody knew who he was. like who my grandparents are. Literally, when I go home, people are like, "Oh, you're so and so's granddaughter." It's really small, but so when it happened, my grandparents are pretty well off, you know. So my grandfather was like, you know, when he went to talk to my dad or whatever, and he goes, "Hey, son, like, did you do that? Did you do this? Because if you didn't, then we'll take care of it." My dad was like, "No, I did it. And he was like, "Okay," and like he didn't even argue it. Like he was like, "I did it." But another thing too is, if you think about it, like nowadays, I don't know if it's just in California maybe, but nowadays you don't get life for rape. You know what I'm saying? You don't get life for...
Well, usually you don't get life on your first offense.
Well, see, this is what I was going to say was, this was in Virginia in the 80s. And
yeah. So I was like, okay. So I was like, was the chick white or something? If it was in the 80s, you know, unfortunately, you know, that happened to her and all that. And, you know, unfortunately, he made that decision. But it's kind of like first offense at 18.
I think, like, here's the thing, though, because I don't know if when he got out last month, I don't know if it's because he actually got granted parole or if it was because of coronavirus, because he would go up for parole every year and get denied every single time. Literally, they denied him last year. So like, that
doesn't make any sense. Like I said, it doesn't excuse what he did, but it's like, dude, it was his first offense, mind you, and you know, and just because he's black don't mean nothing.
Well, see, he wasn't supposed to get. He got life. That was the sentence. It was life.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, well, maybe he got out because maybe it was the coronavirus. Because he wasn't supposed to be out anytime soon.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things. They're revising a lot of things, especially, you know, crimes that have to do with people that are black and white. Yeah. A lot of it has to do with, you know, a lot of the social things that are going on right now. And it's just like I said, it first offense ever.
Right.
So it's just like, yeah, like usually, you know, there's a first offense. They do, like, you know, a couple years. They get on the registry and, you know, they have to move on with their lives. Right. But it was the 80s.
It was the 80s.
It was the 80s.
And it was
so
just a big L. They were just like life.
Yeah. So, you know, by now he most likely has learned his lesson.
I think so.
And you know, hopefully, you know, he's able to, you know, build something of whatever time he has left.
Yeah, you know, he sounds like, now that I've talked to him outside of prison, because whenever I would talk to him in there, I want to say up until, well, he even actually told me this, but I want to say like the last time I talked to him, like 2014, which is not that long ago. Mind you, 2014, he had still been in there for a good 25 years.
Yeah.
But the way he talked, he did not sound like he changed at all. He was just like, he just had this attitude like, I'm a player. Everybody sees me when I walk in this visiting room. And I'm like, bro, that's not where your head should be right now. And he's always had that attitude all the way up until 2018. And so now that he's home and I talk to him, he's completely changed. Because I thought, okay, he's going to call and act the fool. But he's now I'm talking to him and everything he's saying is like way different. And he told me, he was like, I didn't realize none of this until like probably like 2018. Like, I'm like, yeah, I could tell by the way you were talking before that you were just like, but I also feel like he knew he wasn't ever going to get out anyway. So he was like, I don't care.
Yeah, no, if he was down for life and he didn't know if he was going to get out or not, because it's very rare for people that are in there for life to get out.
Right, yeah.
So he was probably just like, you know, it's not going to happen, you know, and, you know, usually it's in the later years that they're like, you know what, like, let me put some wisdom on these younger kids that are actually going to get out. That's when they start, like, you know, like, dude, like, this is not it. Yeah. And so it's just, he just probably had that epiphany. He probably had some other lifer, you know, that was also talking to him, doing the same thing. And then, you know, he finally, like, started, like, listening to what they were saying.
Yeah, but, I mean, people change, I guess. And everybody, I think everybody deserves a second chance. As long as they're not doing it, like, constantly. But, I mean, I think that how old is he? I think he's 52. Okay. So we got a little bit of time to get it together, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, you know, I forgot what his name is, but the Colonel, you know, from KFC, He was hella old after he became rich. Like, it took him a while. I'm like, if he can do it, I think we all can.
Right? And Morgan Freeman's been old forever.
Exactly.
Born old. I've never seen him, like, young.
No, he started his career really late.
He started in his 40s, huh?
Yeah, he started hella late. So that's what it was.
And Bernie Mac, too. Bernie Mac started in his 40s.
Yeah, so it's just like, you know, you just have to seize the opportunity. Everybody's like, oh, you got to get it while you're young. I was like, no, like, you got to keep work at it while you're young. But if it don't happen till you're old, it ain't going to happen till you're old.
Right?
Like, you just got to wait and see.
Some of the greatest start at, like, 45.
Exactly. I'm sorry if, you know, people who were like straight up homeless, like rag dolls, crackheads and all that could become, you know.
Right. Well, if you want to be like, if you think about it honestly, let's say you want to go to school to be a judge. That's a good amount of time you're going to spend in school. You're probably not going to be on a bench as a legit judge until you're probably in your 40s anyway.
Well, yeah, because before you become a judge, you have to be a lawyer and all that stuff.
So, I mean, technically, you can start trying to be a judge young. You still probably won't get there until you're that old. But at least
What a lot of people don't realize is that, you know, they're so focused on, like, the end game that they're not realizing that they have this whole journey to go through just to get to that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what was the point to getting there if, like, the journey was boring?
Right.
Like, you know, you got to live a little. You got to make the mistakes. You got to, you know, fall on your face and get back up just so that, you know, by the time you get to that end game, you can appreciate it.
Right? Like, if you just soar through it, that's no fun.
Exactly.
I want to trip and fall a little bit and get in trouble and do things I'm not supposed to do. Nothing illegal, but...
Yeah. So, as for, like, the topic of this podcast, why don't you think this is talked about a lot in society?
I don't know if it's maybe because I kind of feel like it's entertainment purposes. I feel like TV nowadays is just for entertainment purposes. It's not to get a legit message across, because people would rather see some chick going to a conjugal visit than sitting down and listening to a child tell you what it's like to have their parent in prison, because it's not entertaining. They'd rather sit here and watch, like, the SWAT team, like, drag an impossible inmate out of their cell because they're acting a fool. That's cool, but interviewing a kid is not. I feel like it's more entertainment purposes.
Well, I also feel like it's, you know, part of the reason would be because, you know, how people kind of, like, look over kids. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, you know, me, I'm 6 and 8 years older than my younger siblings. Mm-hmm. So, like, along with my mom, I watched them grow up. And, you know, a lot of things that I did realize was that, you know, kids have, you know, an opinion. Like, they see everything, you know, they might not say everything all the time, or in some cases, you know, they don't know how to articulate it properly. So a lot of people are just like, oh, it's just, you know, some dumb kid. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, no, like, just because they aren't using the same type of words that you are using doesn't mean they don't know what's going on. Because, like, for me, example, like, I was old enough to see a lot of the things that were going on between, you know, all the adults in my life. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, I didn't know exactly what was going on sometimes, but I knew something was going on. And so, and, you know, like, another thing, what happened is that, you know, my grandfather was also incarcerated. It's funny, it was for exactly 4 years. Mm-hmm. And so my family has a joke where he went to college. But, like, for real, they, like, legit try to tell us that he went to college for 4 years. And my mom was like, yeah, no, your grandfather went to prison. Oh. Or I forgot it was prison or jail. But I was like, oh, what the hell? And so I was like, I wasn't as surprised as, you know, some people would think, because I was like, okay, that's weird. My mom was like, because my mom, like, we would go to my grandmother's house. Mm-hmm. And, like, my grandmother, she would have, like, little trinkets, you know, from the kids growing up, from my mom and my aunt growing up. And so, like, she would have, like, some stuff, and she's like, oh yeah, grandpa made this for me while he was at college. And I'm like, okay, that's weird, you know. That's weird. Like, why would he be making arts and crafts like this at college? So, you know, I was like, okay, maybe he wasn't at an actual college. And so then eventually she told me that he was actually, you know, incarcerated. So yeah, and I was just like, well, like, why like, I understand that you don't want to blast it out to everybody, but, like, when it comes to family and stuff, like, why wouldn't you talk about that? It's kind of serious. Like, just because you don't think the kids would understand. Like, my mom didn't hide it from me whenever my stepdad would go in. And he's like, oh, he got caught. Yeah. Or he's in jail. He's in prison. Like, you know, I gotta go bail him out or something. Yeah. Like, there was times where she would go bail him out, and I would be in the car. Right. So, like, she's at the bail bonds office, and I'm just sitting in the car waiting for her to come back. Yeah. So it's just like, you know, and like the same thing with my brother. Like, you know, like my sister was too young, but my brother, he remembers some things. And so it's just like, you know, just because, you know, like I said, the kid doesn't know how to like say it like as an adult or a teenager would say, it doesn't mean they don't know what's going on. Right. So like, why won't you talk to them about it? Like, what's up with that?
I know. They didn't talk to me about it.
Yeah, no. And do you think, you know, if they did talk to you about it, you know, like, would it have been better for you?
Well, the thing is, it's not that they didn't talk to me about him being in. I already knew he was in because I would go visit. Yeah. I just didn't know why he was there. And I could tell, like, everybody around me didn't want to tell me why he was in there. Like, you could kind of tell they were kind of like... I think I asked one time, and I don't remember. I think I asked my aunt one time. I don't remember what she said, but she went around it. I don't remember what she said. But it wasn't nothing of what I found out.
Oh, okay.
It was, I don't know what it was, but like I said, the only reason I found out is because my cousin was like, oh, I heard my grandma talking about it last night. Yeah. And we were both like 8 or 9.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, really? So when she told me, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna ask my mom.
Okay.
So when I asked my mom, she was like, yes, that's true. And then she told me the story, and I'm like, oh, okay. Because my mom's not the type to flat out tell you something. If you ask her, then she'll tell you, because in her head it's probably like, oh, she's not ready yet, she didn't ask me. Yeah. Then when I ask her, she'll tell me. So she did tell me, and I was like, okay.
I mean, knowing that your father was incarcerated, did that make it easier for you instead of just like, you know, saying that, you know, he's gone or something?
Yeah, because I already knew where he was. Plus, like I said, I was always visiting him, so I knew he was in jail.
Okay, because like I said, my mom didn't hide anything from like my siblings and I, and we went with her to go visit and stuff, and you know, but there's like, you know, some people who don't even know that what's going on, and then, you know, or like they do know, but their family doesn't talk about it really at all. Right. So it's like, so they don't really go, they don't visit their dad or anything like that, or they don't talk about their issues that are going on with it. Yeah. Like, you know, like, what a lot of people don't understand is that, you know, your father being gone, or your mother, because there's kids like that.
Or both.
Or both, yeah. Yeah, I know a kid who has both parents who are incarcerated. Yeah,
it could be both sometimes.
It's just like, you know, they kind of like are like, oh yeah, they're incarcerated, we're gonna leave it at that. Or like, okay, well, one, why in the first place, and two, they're like, well, why am I not visiting them? And then like, you know, like any time that a parent is missing, you know, you have, you know, emotional issues with that. And, you know, it's like, you know, in some cases, like my brother, he has anger issues. Yeah. Like, he already has a bad temper, but, like, this did not help. Right. And, you know, like, the same thing with me. I have, you know, some issues. And so, but, like, nobody really wants to talk about it. Yeah. Like, the only people who talked about it with us was our mom. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's just like, you know, we also doing this, you know, to have kids, let other, you know, children of incarcerated parents or parents know that, you know, that they're not alone, because they knew they weren't, but they didn't have a platform, so we're trying to give them that platform.
Right, exactly. That sounds like a plan, because I don't think there's not one platform for kids.
Yeah, so, and it's like, it doesn't matter, you know, as you said you're 32. Yeah. So you at 32, me at 24, even though technically we're considered adults, you know, there's still issues that we have to hash out.
Right, because we didn't have no platform. And I find it funny that they make shows like Beyond Scared Straight. Yes. Because there are kids in that show, but you're scaring them straight. That's entertaining. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Versus just having something like this. Like, of course people are going to watch you screaming in a bunch of bad kids' faces and throwing them in a pit full of inmates. Of course people are going to watch that. Of course it's entertaining.
Yeah, it's like, and, you know, they're like, they have, like, the inmate version of it where, like, you know, like, they have the inmate, like, oh, I can't see my kids whenever I want, blah, blah, blah. Well, what about the kid that can't see their parent whenever they want?
Yeah. Maybe that kid don't even know why he can't see you.
Exactly. Like, you know, it's like some kids literally don't
no
know that their parents are incarcerated.
Yeah.
Or they don't know why they're incarcerated.
Or why they can't go see them.
Exactly. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
The whole time you're like, I can't see my kid. Okay, well, they probably think of the same thing, bro.
Yeah, so it's just, you know, I'm, you know, yeah, so we're going to try and, you know, keep on moving forward with this platform. But yeah, that's about it. Do you want to say anything else before we go?
I think I got everything off my chest. You said I really hate popcorn.
You really hate popcorn?
I really hate the smell of popcorn.
All right. Well, thank you for being on our show, Alex.
Thank you for having
it was
me.
much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Deuces, people.